What's up, everybody? This is Mark from Solar Games, and today, super excited to spend some time and let's just have a quick chat about the quarter four / fiscal year 2022 Hasbro earnings call. I was able to take a huge deep dive on the actual thing. I released kind of like initial thought based on the numbers and listened to the call. But what I was able to do afterwards is really dive deep into the numbers and look at the specific like lines and their income sheets and balance sheets, cash flow, and really give you an understanding of like what I'm seeing from the company. So today's video is going to be a little bit dense. So if you like numbers, great. If you don't like numbers, there's probably less of me being dramatic and throwing papers all over the floor or whatever, you know. So it's going to be a little bit more down to earth and just sharing to you what I'm seeing from this company that we buy cards from. Yeah, the cardboard company. Okay, so first of all, there's no better way to say it. They're doing way worse than I thought. So full disclosure, I am a shareholder of Hasbro. I have, maybe more than one stock, more than one share of this company. So, and I probably bought it way too high, honestly, at this point. Yeah. The stock price that they are right now, I think is around $59-$60. They probably deserve that price. In fact, I think Bank of America, when they did their hit piece 2 times now, right? They're probably right, actually, to downgrade them down to about like target price 49, 45, something like that. Yeah, this company's doing poorly. This company's having issues. This company is definitely not understanding how to actually make money. They are spending a lot of time angering fans and just pissing them off. And I will prove it to you with the numbers. So let's take a look at quarter four, Hasbro as a company wide. Like, how bad is it really? Quarter four, they reported a loss of 125 million. So that means they spent more money than they earned. How much more? They spent $125 million more in quarter four. Now, where could their spendings be going to? Well, they're producing a movie, they're making all this stuff, they're probably designing sets. You know, the things that roll forward as a company don't stop because they're doing poorly. They're still going to have to pay those costs. That's really where it is. Now it becomes very clear why they basically fired enough employees to save about $150 million a year. They're trying to basically cover for this $125 million loss in Q4 by having less employees. Of course, then they reduce spend and they can move forward like that. So it's going to look better again on paper that they have less employees, but what truly suffers is, how that's going to affect their future products and how that worked out for them in the long run. Fiscal year 2023, how did they do? They actually had a profit of $407 million. Now, these numbers, I've rounded off to the million. Just understand that. What does that mean? It's about 7% margin of business. So, and that 7% is on a revenue number of 5.86 billion. Now, 5.86 billion sounds like a lot of money, especially for a company like WotC. They're not a software company. Well, I guess Magic Online, MTG Arena, D&D. Okay, the kind of software company, but they're not really a software company. They sell products, they sell toys, they sell physical good. So yes, you shouldn't expect crazy margins, right? That, margins that you see with Amazon, Google, Apple, these kind of companies, but you should see reasonable margins. The problem is though, while they're not a software company, a lot of what they do is like, they're kind of printing cash. So think about Magic. You turn cardboard into money, and they still just, can't make money, can't make a lot of money, because 7% margin is actually pretty bad. I'll give you an example of what 7% margin looks like. Imagine you buy a booster box. What are the booster boxes now? Like $100, okay? Let's say you pay $100 out the door, shipped, whatever, at your house, $100, booster box. You then sell that booster box for 107. That's what 7% margin feels like. It's not a lot of money. Now, there's a big difference between you doing this kind of flipping and earning 7% versus the company that's designing the product. Because they're building the product from ground up, that margin should be way higher than you trying to flip that box, if that makes sense. So if you look at retailers selling Magic, whatever, usually they want to target for about 20 to 40% profit margins on everything they sell. So if they import something from distributors, say at $80, okay, they probably want to target for like $100, which will give them a nice healthy like 20% margins on their, sale, 25%, whatever. That's usually what they're targeting for. That's why, you'll see the prices you see for Magic and other things like that. But of course, with online retailers, with a lot of people coming into the business, that's really driving that margins down. So a lot of retailers are basically struggling to survive because they're living off of like 7 to 9% margins on Magic. Remember, they have to pay for rent, they have to pay for staff, employees, the building, all that stuff, right? So think about it from that perspective. Now, let's take a different perspective. 7% margins, right? You are running a company, you have risk, you have costs on the bottom line, and you're earning 7%. Right now, look, this is a crazy time, but right now, if you're a bank and you're loaning money out to people and they have to pay you back in interest, that's about 7% right now for a mortgage. Now, if you're doing business loans, whatever else, it's even higher than that, probably 11, 14%, who knows what it is right now, right? The current rates. In times before all this interest rate increase, shenanigans, business loans were about 7%-ish because they were, a little bit risky. You didn't know if the business was going to give you money back. But imagine if you're running a company like Wizards and you need to take a loan and your margin's 7%, you would actually make no money. Sorry, and let me correct what I just said. I don't mean Wizard, I mean Hasbro as a company whole, right? So imagine you run a business, you are making 7% margins, and you have to take a business loan at 7%. Guess what's going to happen? You make zero money. It's not good. You have to make way more margins than that to kind of run your business, right? And actually be profitable. Yeah, another way to look at this, if you currently have $100, I wouldn't buy Booster Box. If you're only looking at 7% margins, I would probably take that money and give it to the US Treasury for a 5% interest. And all you have to do is keep it in there for a year. Pretty much no lockup on the money, right? And actually, I was looking at interest rates the other day. I mean, you could get interest rates as high as 4.98 for a 6-month loan to the US Treasury. So buying bonds like that, much better business. In fact, there's no risk, right? It's US Treasury. They're going to give you the money out no matter what. So for Hasbro as a whole company earning only 7% margins, it's really bad. It's really bad. So yes, is it profitable? Yes. Are they losing money? No, not for the whole year, but 7% is terrible. Cool. So let's talk about WotC, right? Wizards of the Coast. Wizards of the Coast is absolutely the golden goose of Hasbro. It is probably like, it's not just a goose that lays golden eggs. The goose itself is made of gold. That's how expensive WotC is. I'll tell you why. Look at this. Q4, right? Remember, this is the Q4 that Hasbro has lost money. Q4 for Hasbro, they made a profit of $104 million on a $339 million revenue, right? So if you do the percentages, you're looking at almost like a third. So they're making like, let's say 27%, 27%, or 29%, whatever, margins on their products. So much, much better. That's like saying, hey, I buy a booster box for 100, I sell it for 129. It's pretty nice, right? Within a quarter, 3 months, it's pretty good. If you look at fiscal year 2023 as a whole, WotC made $538 million on a $1.325 billion revenue. Now, remember, WotC is now the first, not WotC, but Magic is now the first $1 billion business. But Wizards of the Coast runs a business much larger than just Magic the Gathering. It has, your D&D, it has other games that it has just on the side too. So those are also bringing in revenue for the company in addition to what Magic the Gathering is bringing in, right? Duel Masters, for example, is another game that Wizards of the Coast makes, again, marketed towards Japan. That's why we don't hear about it too much in the US. But it exists and it makes them money. So Magic this year did super well. It had over $1 billion in revenue, and it's the first brand in Hasbro portfolio to do this. So that's pretty exciting for Magic because it is now basically, putting the foot down and saying Magic is making a ton of money. Now remember, Magic doesn't have the best top line, right? So a lot of Hasbro's toys division, whatever, has better top line. By top line, I just mean top line revenue, meaning how much money did you sell products for? Raw cash, not the profit. But if you take out the costs and cost of licensing, cost of production, cost of whatever, inventory, sales, whatever, Magic's margins way better than any other business at Hasbro. It's not much we can say about that, right? Wizards of the Coast, also as a company, if you judge Wizards of the Coast outside of Hasbro, like imagine it's a separate company, is actually really consistent with respect to its revenue and profit. If you look at those two numbers, it pretty much is, ever growing upwards, with profit going upwards as well as revenue, pretty much in line, because again, they're printing cardboard money. Like, they're taking cardboard and selling it for cash. It's probably the best business you can get aside from just printing money directly. Okay. Or maybe some of the, like, I don't know, like bank stuff where you can basically take other people's money and earn money on their money. It's kind of nice, right? So high risk though. So yeah, again, in good times and bad, this is the key. So you want to look for companies that are consistent. It's not just about like, hey, they're doing really great this year. They're doing really great for 3 years in a row. How much, like 13 years. If you look back in 13 years of like Wizards of the Coast, right? They've made money 13 out of the 14 years if you look back. Chris Cox talked about this on this call. He was very proud of it, right? 13 years out of 14 years, Magic the Gathering has never taken a loss. That's pretty good. And I mean, I get it. It makes sense. Their margins are around like 40% for the business. Hey, yeah, I would be surprised also if they would lose money. So yeah, again, this just tells me Magic players, pockets are pretty deep. And you don't have any issues spending money. We don't have any issues spending money. I love spending money. I love buying Magic cards. It's great, right? I mean, I can tell from my numbers when I'm selling on eBay. Magic sells consistently super well. Even through bad times. When Magic 30 was announced, people were still buying Brothers War. Infinity was selling. Warhammer. I think I sold over 16, 14, 12, I don't remember, like cases of Warhammer decks. Right? It's a small number. It's all I could get. But hey, they were selling through. The sell-through rate was great for these items. So let's talk about like how much better, right? So we've already established, like, if you look at these numbers here, right? If fiscal year 2023, Wizard of the Coast made $538 million profit, and Hasbro as a company only made 407. That means somebody is losing money, and it's not Wizard. Wizard's kind of like pulling everyone along, right? So how much better is WotC compared to every other business at Hasbro? First of all, look, the reality is like this. Almost every other division at Hasbro is losing money. Almost. Not all, almost, okay? Remember, Q4, just looking at Q4 specifically, WotC made a profit of $104 million. Hasbro as a whole, lost $125 million, which means had WotC not made the $104 million, the total loss among the other divisions is going to be like over like $230 million. Yeah. So these guys are losing 230 and WotC's making about 100 and kind of even it out to 125 of loss. If you look at the whole year holistically, again, like I said before, WotC made $538 million. If the rest of the divisions at Hasbro did not exist, all Hasbro was just Wizards of the Coast, they would have made for the year $538 million. But instead, they actually made less, 407, because the other divisions are losing money, right? And this, remember, is on top of the fact that Hasbro this year sold their like music, entertainment industry, whatever. So when they purchased E1 Entertainment, they got E1 Music and they just kind of sold it because they're like, that's not our field. It's not something we can make money off of. But, stupid Hasbro paid $4 billion for this E1 Entertainment business. And look, any layman can look at what they're doing and say, this is the dumbest thing you can ever do. I'm not saying that they can never make money off of entertainment. I'm just going to say that the way that things are looking, this is going to be a sink for a lot of money to be lost for many years to come, this entertainment piece. And they've sold off the non-profitable things. Guess what? There's more. So why are you paying $4 billion for a non-profitable business? It's the dumbest idea ever. Could you have bought Marvel instead and just became Disney for at least like 10 years? Remember, just because we all kind of like are lukewarm about Marvel now, Marvel was doing very well for 10 plus years. So there was a good ride for Disney to ride on that profit train for years and years and years to make back all the money they spent to buy Marvel. But over here we got Hasbro buying E1 Entertainment and probably just putting more money into a burning sinkhole, right? Throwing more logs on the fire. Guess what's going to happen to your money? It's just all going to turn into ash. Anyways, okay. Let's look at specifically those subdivisions that are losing money, right? Consumer products. So this is all the toys and stuff like that, right? So they had $217 million of profit. It's pretty good for the year of 2023. Except that was on a $3.6 billion revenue. Yikes. That's not even... yeah. That's what is this? Like a little bit less than 10%. So they're probably in line with that 7% margin on their business, right? So consumer products, 7% margin, which as we established earlier, is pretty bad for business. Whereas WotC's making 40% over here. So there you go. Entertainment. So this is the entertainment business I've been shitting on. They actually made money. Okay. They made $22 million. Okay, great. On what? $960 million revenue. So yeah, that's terrible margins. I mean, that's not even that's 2%. 2% margins. It's not even worth your time to do this. Okay, but here's the other fun thing, right? Other losses. Right? So they had to report a $370 million loss. This is more of an accounting thing. It just has to do with the fact that they sold E1 music industry. And so technically they write it as a cash item, but they would lose it off the asset. So it's supposed to balance out. But again, they have to report it as loss. That's where the $370 million is. There's some additional losses in there too. It's kind of not clear because it just says other business. So I'm not really sure, in addition to that, what else is there. But of course, this is where it all sums up. So WotC has made $538 million, right, on their $1.3 billion revenue, 40%, again, 40% margins. Of course, that's being brought down by the fact that overall, rest of the business lines up, they are losing money. So overall, Hasbro has lost more money than WotC has made. Cool. So moving on forward to dive specifically into WotC and their business line. We don't have so they don't report anything on D&D or the specific products and brands within WotC, but we can kind of take a venture guess of, for example, how big D&D is versus Wizards of the Coast Magic, right? Magic versus D&D. So Magic, for example, this past year, 2023, made a revenue of $1.7 billion, right? And everything else at Wizards of the Coast was $235 million. You can basically make that calculation by the fact that they reported Wizards of the Coast made a revenue of $1.7 million. And if you take the total revenue of Wizards of the Coast, subtract the WotC or subtract the Magic part of it, you get everything else. This includes Deckmasters, D&D, and whatever other subsidiary small things that WotC does to make money, right? I'm also assuming that MTGO and MTG Arena are part of reporting for Magic the Gathering and not part of the rest of Wizards of the Coast. But again, paper is strong, super strong. Paper is making most of the money, while digital is making a good chunk of it as well. But it's not as much, right? I guess again, I think it's starting up. It's not quite there yet. So again, this is the whole thing about the OGL, right? So I think the OGL change was pretty big. But honestly, it's affecting future money, and they haven't really dove too much into that future money. Remember, D&D Beyond was only purchased last year in April, 2022. So they haven't really started monetizing it yet. And even if they start doing that, it's probably not big enough for them to really care if Magic is over here bringing $1 billion over and everything else is making only $230 million, right? It's kind of not a big deal, right? So I'm still pretty surprised by the reaction or overreaction by Wizards to kind of roll everything back for the OGL. But I guess in the grand scheme of things and really understanding goodwill for the future and their plans to monetize D&D in the future, I think kind of makes sense. So they just don't want D&D players to hate them right now because that's a monetization potential, right? So a lot of companies, when they look for example, back in the growth days, they'll look for companies that say, oh, like Uber, Lyft, right? We have 20, we have 150 million users. Cool. So everyone, all the investors are thinking, okay, if we can make every one of those users spend even $10 a month, that means we can make 1.5 billion a month, which means that our annual revenue, you see how that equation works? So that's the power of the growth company. So of course, Wizards are looking at the same thing, saying how many players are playing D&D, how much they're paying per month. Can we make them pay even $1 more, $2 more? Because I think actually realistically, the player base of D&D might actually be potentially larger than Magic the Gathering. Because again, it's been there longer, it's older, and with Critical Role and the things that have happened in the last like 5-6 years, it's really built that base up again, right? People are revitalized interest in RPGs, tabletop RPGs. So I could see it. But the truth is they don't bring in as much money as Magic the Gathering, at least for Wizards. I mean, there might be other people like Pathfinder or whatever that are making more money off of their player base. And if we sum up all the role-playing games players, maybe there's more, but it's not quite there yet for Magic, right? And here's the other thing too. Remember, D&D Beyond was purchased this year for 146 million. So they're already down 146 million from that purchase. So they have to kind of work themselves back up from that. So you're already 146 in the hole. You got to really make your money back, right? Somehow. So, and that tells me if they bought the entire business for 146, usually when you purchase a business like this, and if it's up and up, because again D&D has been kind of like a growing business, not a slowing down business. I think 146 probably would be 5, maybe 6x their annual earnings. So that would put maybe like maybe 25 million or so would be their annual revenue or profit on the D&D Beyond side for subscribers. Something like that, maybe. Maybe they paid a little bit more. I don't know. 5-6 times annual is pretty common for a business purchase like this. Yeah. Again, yeah, bigger base, not monetized. So that's where we stand. Again, Magic players, could be a smaller base, but heavily monetized. And have you seen the product lineups? It's only going to get worse, right? They've introduced a new card type, guys. There's infinite cards to sell to us now. They can just introduce another card type when we get bored of battle. Okay, so what does this kind of mean for the future? First of all, let's talk about inventory, right? So as the head of like finance, whatever, stated, they did do a good job of clearing inventory in Q3. And of course, into Q4, they did more inventory clearing. So they're looking pretty good, right? They're looking pretty good. Again, that's the Amazon dump that we all know. But apparently not, it wasn't just the dumping of Magic cards. They were dumping like toys. They were dumping a ton of things too. So, it's not just us, okay? But yes, they're doing that. My read on this is that given the statement about inventory, that they basically said they've worked down the inventory, but it's not completely gone. So there's still a backlog of inventory. We're probably going to see more Amazon dumps to come, right? Again, they weren't even interested in doing any sort of like special sales to the actual brick and mortars. They answered this on the call. They were more interested in dumping it through Amazon, of course, because the margins are higher. They lose less, I guess. It's not even higher margin because they're probably losing money when they dump those to inventory than if they did it through brick and mortar, right? But again, the other problem is you're doing damage to your brand. If you sell Magic boxes for $60, $69, whatever, 69.69, people are not going to pay you $100 for the next box. Price memory is super strong. So, yeah. So my read is the current dump or the dumps last year probably did a good chunk of damage to the backlog of inventory that they've had, but who knows about future inventory, right? So let's look at what has been released since the dump. So DMR honestly sold weaker than expected. What I see is there's still plenty of DMR available from distributors and the prices are being slashed everywhere across the web. So I suspect DMR might be the first target of another dump. They probably overprinted DMR, Dominaria Remastered, for those people who don't know set codes. Yeah, I suspect they printed too heavily because they were anticipating a type of demand similar to Time Spiral Remastered. And I don't know. But part of the things that they probably did not calculate for was, DMR comes with a collector's booster. So there's plenty of people who are more willing to open booster boxes, not to play, but for cards, that would be satisfied with opening collector's boosters instead of draft. So did they actually account for that when they printed or not? I'm not sure. But what I see on the market is there's plenty of DMR, and I don't see it kind of like rising prices anytime soon. Yeah. If there are any excess Brothers War, and I just don't know, right? Probably we're going to start seeing dumps soon. Now, it looks like the collector's boosters are selling, have sold pretty well, and are selling through pretty well. So there's no need to decrease in price in that. And there has not been like a huge wave of them coming to market, even though everybody can kind of buy them. They're available, but they're not like super cheap, and you can't buy too many. Now, what's going to happen when the next serialized card set is released, and the one after that, and the one after that? Doesn't that make Brothers War less interesting, right? Especially if like they release a set where, you know, you have one of ones or one of hundreds, one of tens instead of one of 500s. So something to think about for future of Brothers War, even the collectors. But the actual draft set boosters, given how much money is probably going to go into Phyrexia All-Will-Be-One, March of the Machines, and what's coming up next, I don't think there's going to be a lot of interest to purchase those for now. Brothers Wars, don't get me wrong, is a great set to draft. From all the experiences that I've heard, I've not drafted this. I just didn't have time. It's a good set. So I hope to draft it one day. I hope to draft it multiple times. But, you know, it's going to be fine long term, the draft boosters, similar to like Neon Dynasty, the fun draft sets, right? Dominaria United. Did we ever actually finish dumping Dominaria United? I think the collector boosters, yes. I'm not sure about the draft boosters. So right now I think we're in limbo with the draft. Could we see more Dominaria United dumps later this year? Absolutely. Maybe in Q2 we'll see a little bit, because again, they're trying to equal out like their revenues for those quarters. Maybe they can do that. But I guess if you're dumping it at a loss, that's actually pretty bad for your books. So you don't really want to do that. So I don't know what they're going to do for Q2. But if your inventory decreases value because again, the boxes aren't rising in price, there's no reason to hold inventory, which is also costing them every month to you know, have a warehouse for this. Oh, and don't forget about Infinity. So as much as, you know, people were saying, oh, Infinity sold super well, blah, blah, blah. Guess what the problem is right now? Everyone's holding up on Infinity. I have, I think personally, right now, 30 plus boxes of Infinity in my inventory, and they're just going to probably have to sit there for a while because the prices aren't going up and nobody cares. So even these special Shocklands, Galaxy foils, whatnot, not really going to affect it too much. Again, for the reason because there's, you know, there's a collector's booster where you can get some of these specialty versions for a much better price. Infinity as a draft also was pretty tiring. I don't know if other unsets felt like this way. I never drafted unset before Infinity, but I definitely felt like it was a lot of work to play. So not a great experience from my perspective on Infinity. So I'm not sure how long or before the price will go up for Infinity. Maybe if the lands, you know, become a thing again, people will open them probably. Don't forget the Commander starter decks. They're going to have to get dumped. How about the Jumpstart sets? That's the set specific Jumpstart. So Jumpstart Dominaria United, Jumpstart Brothers War, Jumpstart Phyrexia All-Will-Be-One, Jumpstart March of the Machines. Yeah, I think we're going to pre-dump Jumpstart March of the Machines. Because I can tell you right now, no store is going to order that thing for like, what, $60, whatever they're charging at distribution, 70. Why would you pay that price? You know this thing's going to be worth like 30, 40 bucks. Yeah. Okay. Phyrexia All-Will-Be-One likely will be okay. I see the sell-through rate is going really well. They're definitely on a second, if not the third print run already scheduled for Phyrexia All-Will-Be-One. It's a good set. Plus, you know, the change of the printers from the US to Japan printers for their collector's booster, I think is really welcomed by a lot of people. I mean, people who play the game, they know the difference between Japan prints and US prints. It's a big difference. So, yeah. And right now, I just don't know much about March. There are a lot of changes coming in March, which I'll cover in another video. But March of the Machines really is kind of up in the air right now, whether or not it will be a good set. It's going to be pretty rough going because Phyrexia All-Will-Be-One is such a strong set. I'm not sure how much more we can go, right? Okay, so looking ahead. WotC's going to probably kill it in Q1 2023. Phyrexia All-Will-Be-One was a strong set and will sell very, 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 very strong. The 40K reprint will net more money. Yeah, that's it. but also will probably net more money for Games Workshop, but they deserve it, so that's fine. The one completed edition is probably the most highly sought after bundle I've ever seen in my life. If there's ever a true collector's edition of a bundle, this would probably have to be it. I would say this is probably more sought after than the Eldraine one, especially with the Eldraine set coming up soon. Would we see a reprint on some of our favorite cards from Eldraine that are very expensive? Okay, if we do, then what happens to the old prices, right? What if the artwork's better? So these are all things that kind of put, the old set in jeopardy. However, with the one collector's bundle, look, man, unique lands that you can't find anywhere else, unique foiling process, unique foiling and texturing process, and unique mythic rares. Even if you don't like the artwork, you have to say the cards are collectible. And so there's value there. So long term, the one complete edition, I don't know what long term I feel, because I think they're going to reprint the thing, because anything that doesn't literally have the word collectors on it will be reprinted by WotC. It's not it's not up for debate. That's probably what's going to happen. Yeah. Okay. So again, that bundle will do well because it's going to straddle Q1 and Q2, which will actually boost up Q2 numbers, which traditionally is a pretty weak quarter for Wizards of the Coast. Because again, this is like weaker sales, weaker everything. Yeah. I just don't have much hope, I guess, talking about Q2. I don't have much hope that Gandalf will save the day, nor Frodo, nor Sauron. Like, I think March the Machine, I don't know about March the Machine. I think, will it be a big hit? I think it'll be necessary. I think the fact that battle cards are in those boxes will probably help the sales. But how much would it help? Would the first set of battle cards be the ones that everyone wants, or are they kind of like super weak, watered down versions, and then really the second set or the third set of battle cards once people start playing with them and really, let's be honest, play test them for WotC, will those cards be the true battle cards that everyone wants? So coming in like Q3, Q4, who knows? Yeah, so there's that. I think the huge caveat though, right? There's two things that's going to really throw wrenches in what happens this year. Number one, if WotC has realized there's mistakes and they are silently or overtly slowing down print runs and cutting back, which again, I'm not seeing any signs of it right now, but if they do this, that could mean that actually these sets will sell better. In fact, I think it could mean that there's more revenue because there's no need to dump products, whatever, for them in the future if they can regain that consumer confidence for this year. There's number one. Number two is, given what happened with Magic 30, I think WotC's pretty sure now they can't just print powerful cards from the past, even if they give it stupid frames or stupid whatever, gold border back garbage crap, whatever, right? That's not going to fly anymore with players. But who's to say that they can't print better cards and severely power creep the game? In fact, we're kind of seeing this with one. We're seeing this with a lot of the recent sets, right? We're seeing this with things like channel lands from Kamigawa and Neon Dynasty, right? So could they pick up the pace with power creeping to the level of maybe perhaps even Yu-Gi-Oh! Or Pokemon? If you've never played those games, check out some of the videos of other people who do play it, and especially the ones of people complaining or talking about power creep. It's pretty severe in that game, so there's that. Here's the thing. This will make the reserve list basically obsolete for play. You won't need a dual land because you'll have a tri-land, so who cares? You won't need Black Lotus because we're going to get the Darkest Lotus, right? So it doesn't matter if the power creep gets to the level where, well, the cards that we think of today are just obsolete by whatever cards they print in the future. That's initially going to get players angry, but it's going to get a lot of players very happy because they have access to powerful cards that they're going to need for every set. Yu-Gi-Oh! Does this all the time. Pokemon does this all the time. They have not lost their player base. They have probably lost some people, but they've gained more people. So, and Wizards has figured out, look how well Fire Exile All We Want is selling. It's because it's a powerful set. It's a power creep set. There's more cards. They're just better. Look at Modern Horizons 2. Power creep set. Sold really well. Look at weaker sets. Did not sell very well. Adventures in the Forgotten Realm, right? Did not sell very well. Look at like Zendikar Rising. Did not sell very well. Let's see, this is the thing about power creep. They've figured out power creep earns money. And it really doesn't do much to their brand or image, even though we as players intellectually or philosophically think power creep will destroy the game. So far, it has not done the type of damage we think it's going to do. So maybe it's not a big deal. Yeah. If they power creep sets, they can maintain those numbers, and they'll probably still sell super well. Because think about what happens with print runs. The reason why we don't need so many product in circulations because we don't really need that many of these cards, right? But if I power creep a lot more cards, I need a lot more cards in circulation because a lot of commander decks, pioneer decks, modern decks, legacy decks, standard decks are going to have to get rotated out, right? Oh, well, I can't use Ragavan anymore because there's Ragavan 2, right? Dockside Extortionist, step aside. I got Dockside, Plunderer. You see what I'm saying? Like, you could get to a point where cards just get replaced all the time. And if that happens, who's to say that, basically build rotations in everything. Commander will have a pseudo rotation, modern, pioneer, everything will have rotations. Then yeah, there's more demand for product. There's more demand for cards. In fact, a lot of card games in Japan, they just power creep like this all the time. There's not a problem. They still have player base. And it kind of works. So who's to say that Magic will always be the last bastion against power creep? I don't know. So anyways, super long video. Sorry about that. Kind of not sorry. You got a lot of good data. So do with it what you will. And I hope you enjoyed it. And I hope these long form videos are informative and helpful. I'll see you next time. Mark Solo Games, I'm out. I'll see you next time, and you have a great day. Peace.